Black Girl Nerds. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerds.
Yo, what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? We are live, you guys. You know what time it is. It's time for the Swarm recap. But first, I want to say happy Easter. I hope everybody is enjoying themselves, staying nice and relaxed, hanging out with family. Let me make sure I get my comments pulled up for anybody who's jumping in here. But yeah, you guys know how we do it. Every Sunday, we are counting down. There's 7 episodes in this first season of Swarm. So yeah, we're bringing you all the drama, all the venting, all the ranting. It's a little slim pickings for the show today because you got the holiday going on. Everybody just on real chill vibes today. Angelica will be joining me here in a second. She's going to give you the breakdown, detail by detail, of how this episode went down. We are on episode 4. And also, make sure you are following Black Girl Nerds on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, we're there. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube so you will get all the notifications like this when we go live. Also, Jamie is on special assignment. If you have been following us on social media, you probably got an idea that her coverage has got something to do with lightsabers, a little go groove. 2 words, Rosario Dawson, right? So go check that out so you can see what I'm talking about. Star Wars Celebration has been happening big time. So go follow us on social media. You can see all the cool interviews that Jamie is bringing us. Missing Samuel, Josh, and Giandra, but we're going to make it happen. So, I'm ready for open for comments. You guys let me know what you thought of episode 4. It's called Running Scared. Spoiler alert, if you're not already familiar with our recaps, we're about to spoil this thing down to the very detail. So if you haven't seen it, pause it, come back so you can get the full breakdown and you can join us in the conversation. But yeah, you guys drop in the comments right now. I want to know how you guys are feeling about Dre up until this point. Is girl totally irredeemable? I mean, it's just like bodies are dropping. So let me know what you think right now going into this. To me, I've said it before, this feels like a villain origin story. It feels like almost like when we got Joker with Joaquin Phoenix to me, where they're really breaking down where Dre's headspace is. How does she become this ultimate villain where she is unstoppable? We're kind of seeing the pieces sort of fall into place. And to me, this episode, we're talking about thrillers, horrors, right? They get in your head. And this episode for me was all about how much can we push her psychologically. Dominique played this role. I want to mention, I don't know if you know, I was kind of looking about this episode because I was kind of wondering about this. Dominique decided to get a therapist on set throughout this season because she was worried about, of course, her well-being, others on set, because they're talking about some intense issues. This is very intense when it comes to mental health. That still doesn't get enough coverage when it comes to Hollywood. It comes to the things that we watch. It's so important to take care of your mental health. And, just as an actress, I can't imagine where she had to go to kind of jump into this role of Dre. We're giving her so much praise for how she jumped into this role, the depth she had to go. So that takes a toll on you as an actor. You have to go there, right? You have to do your research. If not, it's not believable. So I thought it was so important when I read that she made sure there was a therapist on set to make sure everybody was okay. Because yeah, it's some heavy stuff. In this episode particularly, we're going to talk about some other female characters that are introduced that are really going through some stuff. And how they are, finding camaraderie, how they are working together, how they're dealing with their issues. Some people use different ways of therapy. Therapy is not always just, you lay on the couch, somebody sitting there with a notebook. So everybody finds out different ways of how they're going to, release those inner demons, so to speak. How do you deal with that kind of stuff? And this episode really dives into that. Billie Eilish plays it down. Shout out to Billie Eilish. I didn't even recognize at the very beginning that it was her. So I can't wait to dive into that with Angelica that I didn't notice. So yeah, she played that. Hopefully your girl gonna be in some more suspense and thrillers coming out on horrors. I think she'd be great in that genre because I was not expecting this performance that we got from her. But yeah, as everybody that's joining in, as I see you guys coming in and joining in, please let me know what you thought about episode 4. Angelica's going to be hopping on soon here. She's going to give us the break, the play-by-play of where Drea is for this episode. Again, it's called Running Scared. So we get a kind of, we know last episode 3, called Taste, because we know Dre got herself into some trouble, right? Like she going around biting people. Remember what I said before? I don't know why she always going around biting people. Stop biting people. So we get to see the ramifications coming into this episode now, this episode 4, of what exactly that means. You know, when social media picks up on something like that, everybody's digging. They trying to figure out, you know, exactly what went wrong. Like, who is this person that bit Naja and thought she was gonna take off? So yeah, I mean, we're breaking it down now. Oh, I think I see Angelica. I'm gonna pop her, add her into the stream here so we can start breaking this down for you guys. What's up, Angelica?
Hey, sorry about that. It's Easter. I had to get the
I
kids
know, right?
situated.
I know, look, slow vibes, it's chill. We doing what we got to do to make it happen, but we was gonna bring them to recap. So I was like, listen, y'all don't want to hear me talk no more. So let me let Angelica go ahead and get it.
Yes, let's get into it. So this episode is entitled Running Scared. It is the 4th episode. It's probably one of the more violent episodes in the series, and we've seen some things. So yeah, since now that I'm here, Ryan, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I was just saying this one to me brought really, you know, one of my favorite things about thrillers and horrors is the psychology, right? And this episode really brought it. Just how deep is this villain? How scary does this person get? So I thought this brought. What did you think?
It was a little crazy to me. Dre's really leaning into. I mean, not that she wasn't already a psycho, but she's like really leaning into a mean green killing machine during this episode. But I did appreciate the fact that Eva, and we'll discuss her more in detail later in the recap, but I kind of really enjoyed the session she had with Eva and how she kind of got into her psyche and was able to like peel back the layers of who Dre is. And Dre, even though she's been kind of on the run, I mean, not really on the run because nobody knows that she's committed these crimes, but she's always had a different identity everywhere she goes. And so it was kind of interesting to see her being able to discuss her past with someone that she doesn't have to hide from. So that's why I like the episode.
Yeah. Tell us about that title. Get into it here.
All right. So this one's called Running Scared. She doesn't really do a lot of running, but she does make people run from her to her. So yeah, let's get into it. So we open up with a series of videos on TikTok. People are begging the question, who bit Naija? So if you guys remember from our last recap, Dre was so like caught up in the moment that she ended up biting Naija. And then we also discussed the fact that what transpired at that after party is actually a legit rumor out there that Sanaa Lathan had bit Beyonce at an after party. So, and just like the whole situation with Beyonce, you know, Twitter, I don't know if TikTok was a thing at the time, but Twitter was definitely up in arms about who bit Beyonce, who's the culprit, who did it. And Tiffany Haddish ended up snitching and saying it was Sanaa. So same energy, you know, these members of the swarm are speculating who's the suspect. You know, they kind of about to sting the person responsible. So we know that Dre now has not only the murders of multiple people on her conscience, now she has the fact that she bit Naija. So she's dealing with some things. So it's now April 2018. So the last we saw Dre, it was around summer 2017. So it's been about a year since the biting incident. She's back in Tennessee. This time she's in Manchester, on her way to Bonnaroo, which is a popular festival that happens annually in Manchester, Tennessee. Naija is performing. So, you know, immediately when I saw that she was on her way to see Naija, I figured she's trying to possibly apologize for biting her. Who knows? But obviously it's a long ride from where she was. You know, first we saw her in California. She ends up driving a car with Texas tags. So she's driven a long way to Tennessee, and she starts to fall asleep at the wheel. She swerves in the road, but that draws the attention of a motor cop. And he pulls her over and asks for her license and registration. Dre hands it over calmly. So I see at this point, she's a little bit more suave with her lies. He goes back to his motorcycle to like run her license. And she actually nervously glances at her back seat, which is covered in blood. So she throws her jacket over the seat to cover the blood stains. So the cop, he's a white cop, obviously. White cop, black woman, never a good mix.
Yeah.
And he asked her, like, who does this car belong to? And she lies and said, oh, it belongs to my mother. So he's like, oh, okay. I see you have Texas tag. That's a pretty long drive. He's like, oh, you must be in town for the festival. And she's like, yeah, I've been in town for the festival. And she's like, I'm headed to my hotel now. And he's like, oh, what's your hotel? Like the Fairwoods? And she's like, And he's like, oh, no, it's the Fairview Hotel. I always mess that up. So he kind of catches her in a lie. So he's basically very suspicious of Dre, and he tells her he's going to follow behind her to ensure she gets there in one piece. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on that opening.
Tiny Hazel, I'll pop your comment back up here. Yeah, episode 4. I wouldn't say it's my fave because I got real scared, but it was deep. Like they was bringing out some stuff in episode 4. But shout out to you. Thank you for joining us, giving us your comments. But yeah, when the cop pulled up, I didn't know. I was like, anytime, like you said, a black woman, white cop shows up, he was giving super creepy vibes, and she had all kind of like I don't know what kind of Dre just as far as her covering like these bodies that we keep dropping. Sometimes I don't know how girlfriend is getting away with it because I'm seeing the blood on the headrest. She throw the jacket in the bag to cover up the seat. I'm like, come on, girl. I'm like, come on. If you're gonna be doing this, you're gonna have to clean it up a little better for me. So I was just thinking she wasn't making it out of this one. So that's all that was popping in my head.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, she's getting better at lying, but you would think if she murdered somebody in their car that she would clean up the blood, but Dre just be in her own world. So she's pretty desperate to shake this guy. So she stops at a gas station. She goes inside the convenience store, and the cop waits outside. A woman named Cricket, who's played by Caitlin Scheel, approaches her and compliments her outfit, and Dre's a little weirded out, but doesn't really say anything. But Cricket seems pretty savvy. She picks up on the fact that the cop is following Dre and goes outside to talk to him. And to Dre's surprise, the cop pulls off. So Dre goes outside and Cricket's waiting, and she tells her that, she got him to go away after threatening to post on her socials that he was harassing a young black woman. Cricket has a pretty large following, and the cop probably didn't want to risk that type of backlash, so he leaves. And then Cricket asks if she's going to Bonnaroo. She kind of notices that, Dre's kind of wearing like festival type clothes, and Dre's like, yeah, I'm going there. And then Cricket asks, like, well, are you staying at a hotel? And she says no, she's actually going to sleep in her car. Cricket's like, look, come stay with me. I live nearby. I'm staying with my friends. And Dre's like, I'm cool. I'm good on my own. But she reassures her, like, look, I'm not a creep. I'm staying with a bunch of really good friends. I really love talking to you. And that's all she says. Like, I love talking to you. And she walks away. And Dre is like, well, how far is your place from the festival? So she agrees to go. I noticed that when Cricket said, I love talking to you, that's the second time in the series that someone has been drawn to Dre for whatever reason. If you remember, Haley was very not attracted, but she was in a way attracted to Dre and was like, oh, I just feel so connected to you. I don't know why. So there's something about Dre's aura that white women love. I don't know. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point you bring up because you would think the weirdness, the way Dre enters a room, like she's so unbothered and whatever she's into in that zone, she's into it. You would think they'd be like, oh, this girl's strange. Let me hear and get about this store. Like, what's going on with this? But yeah, they go up to her. They start trying to talk to her. No matter, she could be the rudest person on earth, but it's just something about, like you said, there's been a few women that are just like, oh, I just have to get to know her. I have to talk to her. Even though she's giving, can you get as far away from me as possible? Energy. Right. They just want to come over there and be attracted to it. But yeah, shout out to Cricket for getting the cop away because we know nothing good was going to happen if that would have kept going on. Nothing good was going to happen. But Cricket was a little strange to me. I don't know if I would have took her up on the offer to go to the house. She gave me a little weird, little strange vibes. But I mean, I guess you got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah, well, Cricket did her a solid. So I mean, I wouldn't stay with a complete stranger, but Dre is on her own out in this world. Why not? Why
Yeah,
not?
there you go. Yeah.
Why not kick it with a stranger? She did it with Haley. Dre follows Cricket to back to her place. It's a sprawling property with a picturesque house. It's kind of nestled near the woods. And Dre is introduced to Eva, who's played by Billie Eilish. And this is actually her acting debut. And she is the leader of this retreat. She asked Dre her name, and Dre introduces herself as Kayla. So that's Dre's identity in this episode. She goes by Kayla. And Ava says she feels drawn to Dre because of her name. She says, familiar names create a bias that binds people together. And I would have to agree with her. When I know someone that has the name of my daughter, or the name of a friend, I kind of instantly be like, oh, my friend's name is that, or my daughter's name is that. So I thought that was interesting that she brought that up. And then she begins to say other names that end with A and how she's felt a connection to them. And Dre says the name, oh, like Marissa. And Eva agrees. So she leads Dre into a kitchen filled with other women from the group, and they're all white. So Dre is the only black woman there. And she introduces Dre to them, and they offer Dre something to eat, and they end up, talking to her about her plans. And she tells them, she's going to the concert. And Eva's like, oh, well, do you have to, did you get your concert wristbands in the mail, or are you plan on picking them up? And Dre admits, like, the concert sold out. I just planned on sneaking in through the West Gate. And Eva's like, that is not going to work. Security is crazy. And she's like, you know what? Cricket is going to work it out for you. Cricket has friends that are performing. We could get you a pass with backstage access. You're part of the tribe now. So they kind of welcome her with open arms. So Dre agrees, provided that she gets to see Nyjah. Like, she is closing out the show Saturday night. She needs to see Nyjah. And they're like, okay, girl, we got you. And Dre lies and tells them, well, maybe Dre believes this lie, but she tells them that, her and Nyjah are friends and she needs to apologize for a misunderstanding. And the women start to like, oh my God, I love Nyjah. She's a goddess. And Dre's like, yes. You're like, oh yeah, Dre is amongst her people because they love Nyjah. Except for Salem. Salem, who's played by Victoria Blade, says she likes her sister better. She's more spiritual, which is a nod to Solange, right? Eva agrees that Nyjah is a goddess, but so is Dre, and that she should speak with purpose. So I'll stop there for those scenes.
Nancy on the name, what's up? He said, good evening, fam. I was out of the country. What I missed? Well, welcome back. Listen, you missed us talking about this introduction with Eva and Dre. It's going crazy down. But yeah, let us know what you thought about this episode 4. But yeah, this was these ladies in the house. Like, all of it was just giving me just creepy. And I'm like, and I know Dre can handle herself. So it was kind of like the way Dominique plays his character, right? In a sense, you're worried, but she got bodies. So you're like, she's not gonna go, it's not gonna go too far, I guess, without her coming up. But the drive right up to the house, like the shots they picked in this episode, I thought were really interesting. Everything gave it horror, like, run away, girl. I don't know why you're getting out this car, run away.
Right.
And they all have so many, they got answers to stuff too quick. It's falling in place too quick. Everybody's a Nyjah fan, except for when they brought up the sister one. I was like, girl, please don't get stabbed at this table and nobody won't see this. Because I thought it was going to go to the left. I was like, don't get stabbed. But yeah, everything is too perfect. Like, they're a little bit too welcoming for me. So I don't like when it's like everything look like it's following into place. So this was a scary scene for me. But yeah, I mean, the conversation at the table was so interesting because, like you mentioned, Angelica, everybody kind of gravitates toward Dre in a sense. She gets so unbothered. She's asking them questions like, well, how you know this? And why we doing this? But everybody, but they got an answer. They're not really thrown off by how weird and like unsociable she really is. So it's interesting.
Yeah, they're a little bit too picture perfect, girl power for me. Maybe I'm just a wet blanket, but sometimes people are too nice and it's for a reason. So Dre is escorted to her bedroom by a group member. and she settles in. She ends up falling asleep that night and she starts to dream of Marissa saying, if anyone is crazy enough to meet Nyjah, it's you. And then she's awakened by Eva, who invites her to an early morning hike, promising it'll be exhilarating. And Dre was like, hike? It's still black outside. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I guess Dre's never been on an early morning hike. Neither have I.
I was about to say me either. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind hiking, but I'm damn sure not hiking at like 5 in the morning. That's ridiculous. So Dre goes on a hike, and they must have been walking, because by the end of it, she's exhausted. She's like gulping down a bottle of water, and then Salem reassures her she was the same way when she joined Decoen. And Dre's like, what is Decoen? And she's like, oh, it's an empowerment group, led by Eva, who is their executive director. Cricket has been 3 years sober, thanks to the group, and Salem has been cured of her stutter. So apparently this is like a women's empowerment group, women's group where they encourage each other, uplift each other, heal. It was giving cult to me. Commune, they're all living together and working on themselves. I mean, I feel like a retreat is great, but this didn't look like a retreat to me. This started to seem like an organization of some sort. And Dre's like, oh, okay. And she starts looking at her phone, and Ava, I don't know if I'm saying Eva or Ava, but I keep like alternating. So excuse me, y'all. I should change this woman's I think I'm gonna stick with Eva. Eva chastises Dre from staring at her phone and not being in the moment. So, on the way back from the hike, Dre stops by her car and notices all the blood has been cleaned. So you're like, oh, what's going on here? Why are they cleaning up the blood? Like, are they covering for her? So maybe I'll stop there for your thoughts on kind of like the vibe of this group and what they stand for.
Yeah, so we all about female empowerment and coming together, trying to help each other through your issues. But yeah, it's that when it gets too deep into that cult-like mentality and you're covering up stuff, it might not be for the well-being of some of these girls. Like sometimes it helps, but yeah, even giving me like she got at this point, I'm thinking, okay, something ain't right. Somebody has way too much power in a group like this because you holding all the cards. And then I'm like, why is the car cleaned? So now, now Dre, them not knowing the full story of her, but somebody knows something, right? You don't just clean the blood out the car. And you're like, okay, that's fine. Oh, you good, girl.
Right.
So somebody knows. I immediately get nervous for her. Like, okay, how many people making it out of this episode?
Right, exactly. So back in her room, she's resting after the hike. Cricket tells Dre she's going to the bank and then she'll be on her way to pick up the concert wristbands. She tells Dre that Eva has offered her a few free counseling sessions. She thinks Dre will like it and it'll be better than staring at her phone all day. It'll be a better use of her time. So she leaves and Dre starts to text Marissa asking if she's mad about her biting Nyjah. So Dre is still texting back and forth between herself, Marissa's old phone, as a means to kind of grieve the loss of Marissa. So maybe, counseling might come in handy. This might be a good thing for her. So yeah, she reluctantly agrees and meets with Eva, who reassures Dre all they're going to do is talk truthfully. And this is actually one of my favorite scenes of the episode. And so I'm going to break this down. So Eva tells Dre when she snaps her fingers, she wants her to say her name as a grounding point. And they will build on that grounding point. So Eva snaps her fingers, and my nails are too long to snap. She snaps her fingers and asks Dre her name. And she replies back, Kayla. And then she asks, what's her favorite Nyjah song? And Dre has a bunch of favorite Nyjah songs, but she mentions Don't Want to Leave. Eva notes that it's a sad song, and then she asks Dre if she remembers the first time she heard it, and Dre doesn't answer. So then Eva does the grounding technique again. She snaps her fingers, she asks her name, and Dre says Kayla, and then she asks Dre about, did you have a hard childhood? Did anyone ever call you names as a child? And Dre says she was called a dyke, a liar, stupid, a pig. And I do want to back up for a second. So she mentions that she was called a dyke. So people were questioning her sexuality. And as we watch the show, we really don't know Dre's sexuality. She seems to be intrigued by sex, but she doesn't seem to enjoy it. And in episode 2, she mentioned that men are a waste. So I don't know if she likes boys or she likes girls. She's been with a man, she's been with the guy from the club. She's been with our boy from the episode from before, the one that liked to binge eat. She's been with 2 men. But I don't know if she likes it. And then she also, earlier in the episode, Eva ends up kissing one of the group members, and Dre's kind of like, oh, okay. So, there's something in her that isn't just a straight line. So we learned that Dre was teased for her supposed sexuality as a child, and she was, like she said, she called a liar, called stupid, called a pig. Pig, I'll stop there because she loves to eat. So, seems like Dre's been binge eating all her life.
Yep.
Eva asks her if she's scared of death, and Dre says no. She thinks death is beautiful because it's equal and it happens to everyone, which is actually pretty poetic. Eva asks Dre if she prays, and she says no because she realized that it's just an echo. And she's like, what's an echo? She says, God. God is an echo. And then she snaps her finger again. What's her name? Kayla. She asks when was the first time she heard Nija, and she says she was in her grandmother's living room, and she remembers there was milk on the carpet. And her grandmother was cooking in the kitchen. Her grandmother came into the room and saw the spilled milk and starts crying. And she asks, Dre, what did you do? And then she snaps her fingers again. What's her name? And she actually ends up saying Dre. And I was like, oh, she said, Dre, what did she do when she imitated her grandmother? And then she says Dre instead of Kayla. So Eva digs deeper and asks her, what color was the blood? And she says, excuse me, what color was the milk on the floor? And she said it was red. So she's essentially saying that wasn't spilled milk, that was blood. And then Eva asks, did you hurt someone? And Dre replies, yes, and kind of gives this creepy smile. Then Eva asks, did Dre regret anything? And she says, yeah, I do. I missed a call from my sister. And Eva's like, well, that's why you're so connected to your phone. And then she asks, do you think your life would be different if you'd answered that call? And Dre nods. Then Eva asks what happened to her sister, but Dre won't answer that question. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on that. Really, I really love that scene. I really love Billie Eilish's acting. She really had me sucked in.
Yeah,
So
this
your
is them
thoughts
walking
on
into
that?
the room here. Yeah, this is
Yes.
them walking into the room. This is like one of my favorite. I love the close-ups on Billie Eilish here. But yeah, she played. I hope she is up eventually to do. I hope she'll do more thrillers or horror. I feel like she'd be really good in that genre. Because I got so sucked in by Eva that I didn't. Okay, of course I'm familiar. I've heard her music and stuff like that before, but I don't really follow her a lot and know what she does. So when I got introduced to the scene, I didn't know it was her. At first, it took me a minute to kind of figure out who that was. And I was like, who is that playing this part? Because I'm like, you have to step out and get on Dominique's level, to really get into the mindset of what Dre's at to really play with her like this. And so I couldn't figure out who that was. So yeah, shout out. She did her thing on this episode. For this to be her acting debut, girl, listen.
You did
if
that.
You got to break from the albums. Yeah, if you got to break from the albums, get into it, girl. But yeah, she did a good job in that. But yeah, I love that you broke the scene down. I too, I thought that was blood. When she was talking about her grandma, I was ready for her to say blood. And I was like, oh, what did she do to the grandma? I was like, I wanted to know more about that story. I was getting reeled in. But yeah, when you think about a cult leader, that's how they do it, right? That's how they get people to follow them. That's how they figure out that trigger that breaks you down mentally to really get into your head where you're dependent on that, right? Dre is now getting pulled in. There's something, that hypnotic state where now she's getting her to break down all her walls. And usually Dre can just be in and out of a situation. She never stays this long. So it was so interesting to see these two play. And if we keep talking about villains or whatever, you got the Joker and maybe you got the Scarecrow, right? Like two people that are crazy and put them in the same room and see who can really outshine the other one. But, it gets dangerous. So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I really like this scene.
Yeah, I did too. Like you said, Billie Eilish killed it. I was like, this is her first time acting ever. Wow, she really is a commanding presence. And Billie's not that old. Billie's like 21. So I'm like, she's a baby, and she over here acting her ass off, and as this leader, as this woman with influence. And if you really think about it, she's just a kid. But I was very, very impressed with her performance and her playing off of Dominique. So I thought that was A1 Billy's.
Mhm.
So that night, Dre dreams of Marissa. She's in the kitchen and she's going through an empty fridge, and I believe there was like a peach or a pear or some type of fruit. That was the only thing that was in the fridge. Marissa turns around and she hits Dre right in the forehead with a frying pan. um, and Dre wakes up and she's told by Cricket that, they have to get up. There's no hike today, but they do have a spa day. So Dre follows her inside a tent where all the women are lounging, getting their spa treatment, and they're all in various states of undress. So there was lots of nudity in
Yeah.
that scene. Billy was covered up though. So Eva asks Dre if her head is okay, and we see the bruise on her forehead. Now, mind you, we see her get hit in a dream with a frying pan, but apparently at some point she got hit in the head and it's real. And Dre is like, yeah, my head hurts. So she ends up sitting down amongst the other women, and she notices, because they're all like half naked, she notices a tattoo, and it looks like a zigzag with eyes over top, almost like a crooked smile. And she asks, like, oh, is that some type of mark? And Eva tells her it's a symbol. It represents the elements. And she says, the women are there to help each other, and they only ask for one thing in return. She asks for their bond. And their bond could be anything that ties you to another person. It could be, a secret, just something that only you and the group will know. So I'm like, oh, so they blackmail each other. Like,
Right, exactly.
is
Jesus.
that the plan? So yeah, she notices that her phone is missing after the spa day, and she meets with Eva again, and Eva reassures her that the phone is somewhere in the house. Nobody is going to take her phone. And Dre snaps at her, and she's like, I have a lot of important things on that phone. And then Eva literally snaps her fingers and it actually straightens Dre out. Like, she stops like flipping out. She just kind of just goes like that. And Eva essentially continues the session, and she's like, Dre, I noticed that you're eating less, which when she said eating less the first time I watched it, I thought that was a bad thing. But in reality, Dre eating less is a good thing, because she tends to overeat and she eats out of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see that Eva's methods are actually working on Dre. And she asked Dre, like, what are you manifesting? And Dre says, like, I'm manifesting that I want to talk to Nyjah. I need to be with her. And then Eva says, is that why you didn't like Khalid? And Dre is actually surprised that she knows that information. And she, Eva's like, we talked about it like 2 days ago, about the fact that you didn't like Khalid, Marissa's boyfriend. And Dre's like, I never told you that. And she's like, yeah, you did. And then she's like, you may not have told me that as you claim, but I do know you hurt people. And, I want you to be honest with me. You're not a liar. And Dre's like, sometimes. Like, she admits that she lies. And Eva's like, I want you to tell me about the owners of the car. Why was there blood on the seat? And Dre admits that she only wanted to talk to the woman. But the woman wasn't a nice person, and she kept talking so much shit about Nyjah. So Dre hit her over the head. Over and over and over. And she realized that she liked it. It made her happy. And instead of chastising her for murdering someone, Eva tells her she's a warrior just like Nyjah. So I was like, okay, interesting. So your thoughts on those scenes?
Yeah, going back to the tent, I don't know why I was drawn into like a lot of the camera movements throughout this episode. I like how they wrapped it up where it was like you said, everybody was like, some people half naked. Billy still had her whole robe and everything. But I like how they zoomed out of the tent. Like, ooh, it gave you that feeling of like like you trapped. You can't go anywhere. It's like this very isolated kind of feeling that I thought the camera angle was giving. Because that was all. When I tell you, I would have been in the car so fast. Because I would have been like, yeah, okay, so this just turned from, okay, I thought y'all were going to get me into this concert but you got the brainwashing aspect of it, right? And it's so surprising. That's what makes this episode so good. And these ladies acted it so well. But just the way that they're able to get into Dre's head when we know she already cray-cray, that they're taking it to another level. Like usually she can fight her way in and out of these conversations. She's not worried about it. She's got her head on straight. But like you said, that snap, and then all of a sudden she's revealing past crimes, murders. And when Eva says, okay, I was like, girl, do not step into this. When she agreed with her, I was like, you do not know what you just gave license to. And are you ready for, she showed you a little bit, but are you ready for how crazy she is about Naja? Like, do you fully understand the crazy? Like, you think you get into her head, but if you think about some of the other issues the other ladies are listing, we didn't hear everybody's stuff, but it don't seem like it's on the same level to me. So it seemed like he was making a leap to me right now to be like, oh, okay, so you murdered somebody. All right, cool. That's cool. All right, let's good. We can deal with that. You're a warrior. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know if you want that in your group.
Yeah, Dre has admitted to Eva that she hurt someone when she was very young. She admitted at least to killing 2 or 3 different people. I would not feel comfortable with this person in my corner, but maybe, you know, Eva being a cult leader and wanting to gather people for their various talents, maybe she thinks Dre will be useful to her because she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She's not afraid to maybe protect the integrity of the group because, you know, she thinks Dre will be an enforcer.
Oh yeah, she need a little force and some muscle. Maybe this kind, but yeah, girl, you gonna get some.
Yeah. And it could be a bigger conversation about white women and white femininity, and the use of Black bodies, and essentially taking advantage of Dre to kind of like further her own agenda. So, I mean, we don't really get into Eva's motivations too much. We just know she's a charismatic cult leader who just likes to recruit. Maybe she wanted a token. Maybe she wanted a diversity in her all-white group. Who knows? But
who knows?
She's definitely drawn to Dre for one reason or the other. And I know she mentioned a bond, and now she knows Dre's secret. I feel like that is, if there's any way to keep someone in your circle, it's to blackmail them about committing multiple murders. So
yeah,
you know,
there you go.
She got something on Dre. So, you know, that night they're at a bonfire, a ceremony. Eva congratulates Dre on her progress. The woman begins to meditate, and you know, they're working to manifest their intentions. But Dre hears the music and a crowd roaring in the distance. And she's like, "Do y'all hear that?" And they're like, "I don't hear anything. Do you?" "I don't hear anything." Like, they're all denying that they hear anything. And then Dre asks what day it is, and no one answers her. And she's like, "What? Oh, I gotta go." She realizes that she's been there for days and days. She has no idea what day it is. She thinks she's missed the concert. Like, she cannot miss this festival. So she's so desperate to like see Naja, she has to get out of there. And one of the women's like, "Who cares what day it is? Like, what is your deal?" Thought that was a funny scene. So she rushes off, she packs, she gets her stuff, she gets into the car, and Eva approaches her car and tells her not to go. And Dre's like, "Where's my phone?" And Eva, instead of answering the question, she just kind of deflects and is like, "Why are you running away? You know you're free to go. We're all free to do what we want." But she does warn Dre, if she leaves, they know everything about her. You know, they had an agreement where she gave them her bond and her phone as accountability. Dre's like, "Give me my fucking phone. Like, I am done playing with you, Eva," basically. And Eva gives her the phone and is like, "All right, here's your phone." She walks out in front of the car with the rest of the women, and then Cricket walks up next to her and is like, "You're better than this. You're stronger." And actually, let me back up. I missed the part. Before Eva walks away, she tells her that Naja is not her friend. Neither are the members of the swarm, but that she's with her family. So the members of the group, and they're her day ones, which is what Marissa used to refer to Dre as. She would say Dre is her day one. So I'm like, you might not have wanted to say that to her. That's a sensitive topic. Like, you're trying to convince her to stay. Wrong move. So she goes to join the other women in front of her car. Cricket walks up and is like, "You're stronger than this. You know, just stick with your family. You know, just come back home." And Dre is not trying to have that. She ends, and instead of just, let me just point this out. The driveway is like this, right? Dre's car is in the garage. It can just back into the driveway. Eva and company are on the other side of the car. So there was no reason for Dre to do this, right? But then again, they do know she's a murderer. And she does exactly what murderers does. She revs her car and runs Eva over. And all the women start freaking out. Then she backs the car up and runs her over again. So at this point, Eva's dead. Like, there's no way you survive that. The other women start to scream. One climbs on top of the car. Cricket tries to pull Dre out, but Dre slams Cricket's head over and over and over into the car door. She ends up peeling off. There's still a woman hanging from her car as she's kind of like going down this long driveway off the property. She ends up slamming her brakes. The woman falls off, and Dre walks over with a crowbar and beats her to death. And when she's done doing it, she does this thing like she does this weird like, okay, I did it. And then she goes back to the car. She drives the 40 minutes to the festival, and she sees like the let out where all the cars are coming out and security's directing them out. And they tell her like, sorry, the concert's over. You got to turn around. And poor little Dre is devastated. She ends up watching Nija's performance in her car. This amazing performance with this woman that she wants to apologize to. She misses it and is just sitting in her car. And that's how the episode ends. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on those final scenes.
I'll take a couple comments. And until the Enigma said,
Sure.
I gotta finish the show. Yeah, you need to finish this show, sure. I could not, like we talked about, everybody on the show talked about that we doing these recaps. We had to finish. Even if you took a day and took a break and come back, we had to finish throughout this because it just pulls you in like that. Brianna Warren, the whole scene was crazy. Yeah, this was when they pulled you in and it went to the next level. But I'm gonna go all the way back to when they're sitting in a circle for the ceremony. I like how it opened up where she was smiling like, yes, thank you, give me my props. Yes, I finished this course. Thank you.
Right.
And it's all just slowly started to unravel. And I think it was it the like cheering? So instead of like maybe the bee noise you usually hear, it was like a cheering or something in the background.
Yeah, it was a crowd roaring, probably the crowd like listening to Nija.
Yeah, so I was just like, I like how they changed up the sound in that to really pull in, like nothing overshadows Nija for her. Like something clicked. It was so strange how something clicked at that moment to pull her back into what they were really doing and what's going on. And you also notice in the scene that she has on, maybe when she gets towards the car or whatever, gets out the car, but she has the band on, like the armband on, like she's gonna get into the concert.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So they must have, I don't think they wanted her to go because they were so caught up in their retreat, but they did at least get her the concert wristbands.
Okay, so it was for real. Because I wasn't sure. I was like, was she really that brainwashed and she didn't notice it wasn't real? I was wondering if it was real or not. So okay, all right. So at least they did like halfway on their promise. But yeah, that scene, that was straight out of a slasher horror film when she started taking over in that car. And I was like, for the love of God, y'all get out in front of that car. As soon as she looked at them and you see her just like zero in, and everybody, she's not really listening to anybody else. I'm like, Lord, she's gonna run them over with this car. And you know, Eva, she was right, or I'm mixing up too. Eva, she was right in the front. And I was like, girl, you messed up when you said you know her secrets and you ain't had nowhere to run. I was like, that's the when the music picks up in the horror, you just take the person out. Cause she got the worst. And then everybody else, Cricket tried to, and you can see how much of like too they played into the cult thing because everybody lost it. Everybody that had decorum and they were keeping it together and they were saying, yes, we'll be your family and we are sisters. They completely lost it because they were like, there's nobody else who's going to lead us, who's going to take care of us. You took out our leader. So it was just crazy how they all come. And then the girl on top of the car, what was interesting to me, not like I wanted to see anybody else get ran over, but she could have just kept plowing through and just took off out of the whole thing. But she has to get out because we now know she enjoys this, right? Like,
she likes to do it.
Right. Like, it's getting besides the point of like, oh, you just said something about Naja. Like, she's taking it to the next level. So she, you know, because she could have just left. She could have been like, drive over the girl, keep it pushing. But she had to get out. And I was like, okay, now we in trouble. Now this is the episode where it was like, okay, there's no coming back after this. You may have thought, like, I mean, we know we had bodies before, and you may have thought like her psyche was in somewhat, but yeah, Now it's full on force, and then seeing her, I felt bad, and I don't know why. Like, this character is so well played, because when I saw her in the car and she was looking on the thing, I felt so bad for her. But yeah, she was
I
killed
did
like 6
not.
people. She killed like 6 people. I was like, Ryan, what is wrong with you? She killed like 6 or 7, or like how many ever were in the cult. And I'm sitting there looking at her like,
I think it was.
but
3.
I'm like, listen, I'm not condoning murder. She's a horrible person. I'm telling you, she's a horrible person. But for some reason, the way this character is played, I was sitting there like, dang, she had set out to see this concert. Now, would I be there to kind of help her out? No, like, hell no. I would be far away from Dre, like never coming to Dre's vicinity. But for some reason, the way this character is played, I'm sitting there looking at her, look at the cell phone, and you like, so she went through all of this and still cannot go see Naja yet. Like, still can't go see her yet. Like, the way she was played by these women was unbelievable to me. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, I'm like, I want to say that again. I'm not condoning violence. She is a horrible person. But for some reason, I don't know what it was. For some reason in that scene, I was like, dang. You mean homegirl is cray went through all this, bodies, and didn't even go to the concert. Like, had to turn around.
Yeah, she
got. Good Lord. But Angelica's the more sane one. She's like, no, she's done. She's like,
yeah, when she started, like, Khalid, I could understand killing him because she felt he was partly responsible for Marissa's death. Yeah. Reggie, even though he was a nice guy, he was talking mad shit, and he pretty much made fun of Marissa's death. So I was like, you know what? You don't deserve to die, but you kind of deserve to die. I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
But every death after that, I was like, Dre, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Like, this is so unnecessary because somebody tweeted they don't like Naja, they gotta die. And she killed people off screen that we don't even know about. So I was like, Billie Eilish didn't deserve that. Did not have to. And they made sure they
palm on the face too, where it's like turned and the blood was running. I was like, ooh. I was like, oh God, ooh.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Billie was acting. Okay, she was acting. She was.
Yeah. Girl, do the next movie, do the next horror movie.
Yeah, I would love to see her in more roles. She did a great job. So speaking of Billie Eilish's character, Eva, who's a leader of this cult, according to Janine Neighbors, Eilish's character was inspired by a Hollywood adjacent cult. I never know how to pronounce this. NXIVM. It's NXIVM. Everyone was talking about it. There's like a whole HBO documentary about it. It involves actresses like Allison Mack. If you remember Allison, she was she played Chloe on Smallville, and its leader was Keith Raniere. So he was sentenced to 120 years in prison. So so this cult was essentially claiming to empower people, to help them out, but it ends up taking advantage of people, abuse, sexual, emotional, all types of things. So one could say, Eva was on track to that direction. She starts off as very wholesome, very pure, but like I said, we don't know her intentions. We don't know why she recruits people. We don't know what her ultimate goal is. If essentially the entrance fee to this cult or to this group is for you to give them a secret, essentially a way that binds you. So now you can't tell on each other because everyone's secret. So I don't know what her intentions are. I mean, I don't think she's on Dre's level of psychopathy. And I feel bad for the girl, but she just messed with the wrong one. You should have just stuck with the Rivers that you're used to. You should have recruited another white girl. Dre ain't the girl. Dre is not the member for you. So that is how we end the episode. So any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that out, because I was wondering if it was based on the cult because of how deep they went and how long they spent in the episode of really kind of giving us as much details as they could about the cult and some of the psychology of the women that were making it up. So man, yeah, that's interesting. You do hear a lot of that going around, talking about different little groups and stuff they have in Hollywood. So yeah. Yeah, she took Allison Mack took a hard fall, boy, from Smallville. And I remember like when I tell you, Yeah, and when I tell you, people was just like the name, like rightfully so, because I don't know all the details, but I know, like, it's bad enough. Like, when it comes out, when it's bad enough. Because when I tell you she dropped, like, it went from what the fame she had in Smallville to, yeah, don't ever mention that name again. Like, keep it over here,
Yeah.
So yeah, Angelica just added something to your watch list if you're curious about that. So yeah, I was wondering how they, but Donald Glover, we should have known they pulled it from somewhere because they be getting the facts.
Yeah, it's called The Vow. It's on HBO Max, and it kind of, I think it's like 2 seasons. It like really dives into the start of the group and how they get you. So if you are ever, wandering the countryside on your way to a music festival and a white woman approaches you about
PSA.
empowering yourself, and just don't go with her. Don't go with her. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, guys.
Look, before we end though, I'm gonna flip this a little bit. I'm gonna go out on a positive note because I saw Angelica's tweet and I wholeheartedly agree with this. And I know she's a Chloe fan. Did you see Praise This? And what did you see without, like, we won't spoil it because this is not the Praise This recap. We don't want to spoil it so you guys don't get clicks and get out there. But I wanted to get Angelica's opinion because I was like, ooh, I saw the tweet, so I wanted to bring it up.
Oh, I really enjoyed Praise This. So Praise This is basically the gospel Pitch Perfect, and it stars Chloe Bailey, who is Marissa on Swarm. So if you're kind of like bogged down by how dark of a turn Swarm takes and you need something, light and uplifting, go watch Praise This, featuring my girl, Chloe Bailey.
Yeah. It's good, guys. It's so uplifting. It's so sweet. Go watch it. It'll give you like a little boost you need if you want to, like Angelica said, if you want to change it up a little bit,
Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, that is where we leave you. We'll be back next week to discuss episode 5 entitled Girl Bye. I really enjoyed this episode and we'll be back to break it down.
Yeah, guys, thank you for the comments.
Back over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the comments, you guys. Angelica, shout out for the outlines as usual, detailed to the max. So yeah, we're gonna be back next time for episode 5. We're gonna do it again. We're gonna break it down. We're taking you guys to the end, so you better stay with us. You better give us the comments, follow us, subscribe, so because you now see even holidays. We are bringing you these recaps. We're serious.
We are here.
We're trying to finish it. Yeah, we are here. We're trying to finish it. But yeah, guys, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining again. Happy Easter. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.